Welcome one and all to another episode of Omnipresent Information Connection. This podcast is on the power of music following the Power of Frequency podcast. So if you know anything about frequency, if you already listened to that podcast, you'll know that it is intimately related to music. And not all frequency is music. However, all music is frequency. So we're going to be diving deep into how music affects us as human beings. Music is so powerful that it affects nearly every part of the human brain. So very basically, in neurobiology, music affects default mode networks, which are the areas that have to do with creativity and daydreaming, and they're affected mainly by what's called the tone quality of the music. Then there's the limbic areas. These are the areas associated with emotion, and they're mainly affected by the music's tonality and rhythm. And then the motor areas of the human brain are affected, and this is what motivates a listener to want to move and dance along to the music. It also further explains why we often see music and motion as intrinsically linked. Dance is very musical, you could say, and then music can very easily be translated into dance. So a huge portion of our brain is affected when we're listening to music, and we need to understand that. And we need to understand that when we are listening to this music over and over and over again, that is literally becoming ingrained in our neurochemistry and allowing those parts of the brain to grow that are affected by that music particularly. So it's very fascinating, very powerful. That's why we call this podcast The Power of Music, because it really does and really can have power over you depending on how you let it. Mm-hmm. And I know you have some fascinating facts to be able to tell the listeners today, Kevin. How do you want to start this podcast off? How does the power of music affected your life?
Well, first and foremost, what is music?
Music is rhythm, tone, all kinds of different instruments coordinated together to create a beautiful sounding noise, frequency.
Can you create music without action?
No, I don't think you can. You have to be able to create a rhythm. You have to be able to create a noise, and to be able to have that effect, there needs to be a cause, an action.
Cause and effect, right?
Right.
So it takes action to create a reaction.
Correct.
Music in different hertz, megahertz, all the different types of frequency ranges, all come with different responses. So, and according to how you're wanting to relay your message, your statement, your particular thing of interest, is that you have to put movement to it, even if it's just a cappella. True story. So the power of music is more than just an instrument. You are the instrument of music. It's then how you resonate with it that you become it and then produce it. So there's always a 3-step process, and it always takes a physical action to be able to have a reaction, right?
Yeah, and the reactions that you can experience from music are emotional. They're in movement and dance. Mm-hmm. They can even bring tears to people's eyes. They can also music can make people angry, can make people frustrated. Mm-hmm. Music can help recall old memories. I'll have a little bit more to say on that later. But there's all sorts of different reactions that you can have depending on the consciousness of the individual listening and where they're at in life at the time that they're hearing it. Mm-hmm. And also just the many different things that go into the music that they're listening to, whether it be rhythm or the tonality, the different types of instruments, how on key it is.
Yeah.
All types of different things, factors that go into how we are affected by music.
Yeah. So Bruce Springsteen said the best music is essentially something to provide you to face the world with.
That's a good way of looking at it. Not all music is obviously used for that purpose.
Correct.
But I'd say that's an ultra positive way to be able to apply the power of music in your life, to be able to help you to move forward.
and in a positive way.
Yes.
So Jimi Hendrix said, music doesn't lie. If there's something to be changed in the world, then it can only happen through music. And even God had his angels and harps and horns and the like to be able to proclaim an action to get a reaction.
Yeah, the Psalms especially talk a lot about stringed instruments and different wind instruments as well in the act of worshiping God. And I see what Jimmy's saying there, Jimi Hendrix, because when you have really good, well-written music, that music doesn't lie in how it affects you emotionally. When you are being affected emotionally by the music, you kind of have to be 100% honest with yourself in that feeling. You can try to suppress it, but having an emotional reaction to music, that emotional reaction is the truth, of how you're being affected by it. You may not like it, but that's what happens. It's very, very natural to us.
Now, the next question, Noah, is that can you only have positives with zero negatives?
As far as when it comes to the power of music, no. Like I was saying earlier, you can have angry reactions to music. Music can muster up bad memories within you. Music can it can be connected. If you made a memory that's extremely traumatic and a certain type of music was playing at that time, I'm sure there's many cases where that person will go out of their way to avoid that music because of the memory that it's creating in them.
Correct. So music has a human effect across cultures.
It does.
Ever since the dawning of man. We have literally learned by beating a stick up against a tree, against a rock, whatever, a frequency, a tone, a way of being able to communicate.
With indigenous people, one of the first emergent instruments was the drum, like what you're saying, just beating something against something else and creating a rhythm, and that kind of heartbeat. And it was very spiritual, used in very, and still is used very spiritually in their practices.
And animals use knocks, and so they'll be either hitting the ground or hitting a tree or hitting a rock to be able to symbolize an action. And those particular animals in that particular area know what that action is.
Mostly birds, probably.
Well, it's either to be able to warn off or to be able to then try to attract a mate, or, I mean, you've got all these different scenarios, right?
They all have different vocal frequencies that they use to be able to signify that kind of thing, too. So it's pretty amazing that we hear a lot of bird calls as music because it's so natural that it's even in the animal kingdom. It's not just a human experience.
So now, Noah, when you hear something positive, something loving, something embracing that you can connect with, how does it make you feel?
Makes me feel all sorts of warm and fuzzy inside, Kevin.
Okay. and then when you're hearing something negative, something scratchy, something just irritating, how does that make you feel?
Makes me want to crawl out of my skin.
Noah, let me ask you a question. Why would one make you want to crawl out of your skin and the other one wanting to be able to hug your skin?
Well, it's the frequencies that you're either resonating with or not resonating with. If you're resonating with it, it often produces a positive physical reaction, good chemicals going off in your brain. It feels good. Literally, dopamine will make you feel good.
That's biology, yeah.
And then with a frequency that you're not resonating with, something that doesn't naturally flow and harmonize together in a way that sounds beautiful to you, it's something that we almost want to escape, something that we just rebuke because the human ear has the ability, and it's not like we hear a bad noise sometimes and someone else hears a music that's super off key and they absolutely think it's the most beautiful music ever. It's actually very kind of cross culturally. We understand what sounds are more in harmony and what sounds aren't. Now then you have metal music, for example. Metal music has a lot of scratchiness, a lot of rough tones, but it's still in rhythm with itself. It's still in harmony with itself.
Yeah,
and
but distorted.
But distorted, right? And people resonate with that. It actually can produce a calming effect, actually, in people listening to metal music.
Right. And then country music, what does that make people feel?
Well, there's a lot of bias in country music.
But not rock and roll?
There is in rock and roll, too, especially between religious institutions and rock and roll in the past.
How much violence is in country music?
Not a whole lot, Kevin. There's a lot of stuff about God, a lot of stuff about country, a lot of stuff about just the material aspect of it, which is trucks.
Dogs.
Yep. That sort of thing.
Getting everything back that you lost. Right?
Country stuff.
Right, country stuff. But more importantly, it's about a celebration, a gathering, a getting together with friends and family to be able to celebrate not only the day, not only the life, but everyone else's life around you, right? In rock and roll, it's all about jamming out. Everyone knows that when you go to a concert, you're just jamming out. Either it's an air guitar or someone's trying to be able to play the drums. There's always something that is connecting people to whatever it is, right?
Yep. And I feel like it was a lot smoother, or at least more commonplace for it to be a lot smoother back in the day. Rock has progressed into, the metal branch of it and all these rougher branches, but there is the classical rock, which I really like, which is less jamming out, less of that force, less of the headbang and more of just really vibing to it.
How many genres are there in music on Earth?
Oh, thousands, a couple thousand.
Where did music originate from originally?
Oh, how far back you want to go?
All the way back.
Because when God spoke in the book of Genesis, you could consider his speaking as a creative element that was musical.
Rhythmic.
It's auditory.
Yes.
They use the auditory language. It's speaking. So I would say that since the beginning of time.
Right. So what you resonate with resonates with you. And so everyone has this auto-rebuking system. And when you hear something that you absolutely love, no matter what the genre is, keeping it wide open, is that as soon as you then hear a song or you hear a genre that you're not jiving to, you have this complete auto-rebuking system to where you just change the channel or fast forward or whatever, right?
Yeah.
But when we take the time, if lyrics are in music, and actually listen to the lyrics, a lot of music that we would listen to, we wouldn't want to listen to. And why?
Correct. Well, because the language adds a whole nother level of emotion to the music.
Right. But you have message, meaning, and either it's positive or demeaning.
Yep, and it can have negative intention. There is a lot of music out there that has negative intention. There is a lot of music out there that has positive intention with negative lyrics, kind of processing through very deep issues.
Right.
And that does help with a lot of people, but only to a point, because there's no real solution in some of this music. Not all of it, but there is no real solution in some of the music I've heard that helps people who are going through a depression or a rough time in their life.
Right.
That it talks about, that it's almost like Psalm 88 in the Bible.
Yeah.
Where Psalm 88 is the one psalm that remains negative throughout the whole thing.
And why?
The entire thing is a lamentation. And that can be extremely comforting, I've heard, for some people, because it shows that you don't have to always be okay. You can get through things and still be have to process them, the negative side of it.
But here's the thing that you can't ever avoid is that the moment you try to avoid something, it then multiplies, divides, and conquers your life. But the moment you face it head on, then it has no more power other than what you worship into it.
So are you saying that's a healthy way to utilize music in your life, is to be able to face issues head on if they have certain lyrics that resonate with what you're going through?
Absolutely. All I have to do is say, listen to the Rocky theme.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, seriously. I mean, there's other, of course, great music out there.
Yeah.
but as soon as you hear the Rocky theme,
Gets your blood pumping a little bit.
it doesn't make you want to cry. It doesn't
No.
want to make you feel sorry for yourself. It doesn't make you feel weak as a person.
Right.
And oh, woe was me. It actually gets your blood pumping if you're a human being, right?
Yeah.
It makes you feel like a conqueror, right?
Yep, and that can have a negative effect if you're not in the right mindset. You know, there's a lot of people that might do something risky listening to that music.
Right. But you're working through the emotion versus being able to pity the emotion that empowers you. Two different levels of success right there.
Much different.
So, when it comes to music, is that, of course, when you are going through a breakup, when you are going through an award-winning ceremony, when you are going through a marriage, when you are going through a funeral, all these different music has a theme, right? It's kind of almost a pointed theme. But here's the real gift, is that if you are not putting in between your ears what helps you to be able to grow through the experience, you'll only become the example of the experience that no one wants to be able to receive themselves.
Right, and even if you do feel like you've overcome something, but you're still, resonating with that type of music, and people understand that and know that, they might, still think that you're at a lower level than where you're actually at. And why would you want to set an example for which you are not actually the living truth of?
Correct. So when it comes to pity party music, when it comes to, very positive, enlightening music versus dark music, we all need these different types of music. And I say this lovingly, because we all need these different types of music to be able to get us refocused, recentered, redriven back to what is really important. Now, some people, not being whole and complete as a person, would get stuck in that genre of music. And then the depression and then the anxiety and the worry and the fear and the grief set in because they keep listening to this really sad, depressing music. And so they just go on a downward spiral.
Yeah, and we've talked about neuroplasticity before. Your brain changes, and music can do this. Your brain changes, and every cycle of 30 days, if there's something that you have been listening to for the majority of those 30 days, then your brain's actually going to move faster towards that direction. You're going to be more, that's how addictions start. You become more addicted to going to that place, that frequency. And now, we're not telling you, listeners, that you have to listen to any particular type of music.
Correct.
We're not telling you that you can't listen to the music you're listening to now just because you've overcome a certain issue it talks about. But there is a positive way to spin this. If you still want to listen to the music that you're not the example setter of in flesh, then what you can do, if you're showing this music off to your friends, is you can say, well, this music helped me get through this rough patch in my life, and here's how. Here's what I learned from it. Here's the solution that I've applied to it.
Brilliantly said, because you're planting a positive seed, even if you didn't resonate with that music.
Right. Yep, and now you are the example setter of the music that you listen to, and actually a step above that music now.
So what a lot of people hate, and I say that very lovingly,
Okay.
but what a lot of people hate is having to be able to go full circle back to the truth of what's really bugging them, what's really bothering them, what's really troubling them. And so they then cling on to, in a vacationary way of thinking, music to be able to set a tone, to set a mood, to be able to set a precedence in their life as far as how they feel like they either want to keep punishing themselves or to uplift themselves. When's the last time that something really negative has happened to you and you just can't wait to be able to crank up the positive music? It doesn't happen.
Right.
You literally, in a natural form, resonate, and you try to find something sad so that you can get your sadness out.
Right.
And so music is a form or a source of being able to get out of you what doesn't belong to you. It's a form of rebuking. Then on the plus side is that if it really resonates with you, if it really is helping other people, then you become a seed bearer for all these other people to be able to get not only the message, not only the music, but to be able to get that connection with another living human being so that you can be able to then connect with other people moving forward.
Yeah.
But what you connect to connects to you.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have all this thinking, it is all form of worship. So in music, you need to be able to say to yourself, why do I need to self-victimize myself by having to listen to XYZ, right? And instead, say, I'm going to take the higher road. I'm going to go in a different direction. I have to reprogram my brain from pity and sorrow and anger and all these negatives to something ultra positive. Otherwise, I am backsliding to something that I didn't want to worship in the first place.
Right. And again, it's not a situation where, if you like a particular type of music, then you have to stop listening to it if you're going through some stuff. But what Kevin's pointing out here is that music really does have a lasting effect on your consciousness. And if you're going through a rough patch, you need to be able to introduce something other than music that's going to keep you in that rough patch. It's so powerful to be able to do, and it's something that's a self-help technique. And taking that higher road, if you're already whole and complete as a person, you can listen to whatever music and it's fine,
because it can't affect you because you don't worship that type of music.
Right.
And when I say worship, I truly mean it. It is that you're giving power and authority over to a thing,
right,
versus being able to give it all glory to God, right?
Yes.
So when it comes to music, you need to be able to beat your own drum. You need to be able to sing out your own, vocal harmonies. You need to be able to do something different than what you're doing. Otherwise, you become like the masses, and when you drop the M, there is nothing positive in that. Let me say that again. If you are trying to be able to follow the masses, and then when you write that word without the M, that's how you're viewed back in kind. So you have to literally allow yourself to be able to get out of this programming. And this is what I'm really talking about now. I'm talking about the programming to where you are literally taught that when something's sad, you have to cry. When something doesn't go right, you have to throw a fit. When something isn't resonating with you, you have to be able to yell and scream and stomp your foot and to be able to make other people feel equally as bad as you so that you have something to resonate with too.
Mm-hmm. Completely natural, by the way.
Yes.
You see that in children.
But as adults, we have the power and the wherewithal and the ability to flip a switch and say, hey, listen, I love you. I'm not going to do to you what I had pre-programmed psychologically to do to myself.
Yeah, and some people learn that very quickly in life, and some people learn that much later in life.
Right.
Or never.
So the power in music is all of what it's intended for. So if you knew that the Rocky theme was for conquering, then you know that all these other music can be equally as categorized. So use that to your advantage so that when you are in that state and in that mindset, use it to your advantage versus a disadvantage.
Yeah, a really great tool that I love in a lot of Bibles nowadays is called a topical concordance. And a topical concordance basically points out different emotions, different subjects, different topics, topical, and it lists where you can find passages about that particular topic. And so you can do the same thing with music. Have a playlist for when you need this feeling. Have a playlist for when you need to connect with this frequency, when you need to connect with this emotional mindset. Something that you can just easily access at any point. And I really like that you can make playlists on YouTube. Most music playing websites you can make playlists on. So make that playlist and have that ready to go, so you're not searching for it when that emotion arises.
You got Pandora, you got Spotify, you got all these other great places, right?
And a lot of these, Spotify does it. I know Pandora does it too, where you can actually type in an emotion. So they have the topical already set out for you if you don't want to necessarily discover it all for yourself.
But the takeaway is that life is not easy. Life is not always a box of chocolates. You're going to go through rough patches in your life, but the difference is on how you listen to the outcome. Mm-hmm. So if you are completely down and out, you're in your car, you're going for a drive, you're trying to clear your mind, and you put on XYZ music, whatever it is, right? And if it doesn't, at the end of whatever you're listening to, make you a better person while you're listening to it.
Right. Same thing with anything, really.
How far in pain do you have to go in order to be able to no longer be the show of that emotion?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it can help you cry it out, but once that that emotional baptism, as I know you like to call it.
Well, that's what it is. It's literally an emotional baptism from the eyes.
Right, you're washing clean what's inside of you that doesn't belong to you.
Correct.
So once you're done with that emotional baptism, how many times do you need to return to it? Return to that feeling. Maybe that's the feeling that you're actually looking for, thinking that that's going to help you drop it. But there is a point where you need to move on and stop returning to the same cycle.
That's why when you have a customizable playlist, there's a pivot point. So you go from this genre to this genre to this genre, and they're pivot points. And what they do is they stop you from getting stuck in one emotion or one feeling. And that's why we have a radio, because we have a dial. We literally dial in a radio station that makes us feel good, that we can resonate with. And that's a very huge scenario. So now, picture in your mind a radio dial to where you're then incorporating the right words to be able to say, the right feelings to be able to feel, the right, and you just keep adding on to that until you get to the right channel to where all of it comes together in human harmony with each other so that you can be able to feel better as a person. The number one way to be able to get out of your stuck comfort zone is to be able to go help someone else out of theirs. And you will soon realize that the greatest, most tragic thing that you've ever gone through is not even close to someone else's.
Right.
And then it's hard to be able to worship it. It's hard to be able to focus on it. It may be a bad situation. It may be a really bad outcome. But the bottom line is that you can turn all outcomes into a positive outcome, but it's all by choice. So what you resonate with becomes your destiny. So I'm wanting you to be able to listen to music that resonates with you in a hopeful, positive way, because if not, all you're going to be is in someone else's way.
Right. When it becomes less of a personal style, less of a personal taste, and it becomes more of a delicate emotional situation where you are actually going to benefit from a certain type of music, and you're actually going to become less of a person or have an expression of being less of a person if you listen to a particular music versus choose a new way.
Right.
Then it's important what Kevin's saying here, because it's all about your choice. It's all about your perspective. And if you don't make that choice for yourself, if you allow yourself to continue on a bad track by making it worse with the frequencies that you're putting between your ears, that can be very dangerous even in some situations.
But again, what you listen to becomes you, no matter what the genre. If you are listening to a bunch of garbage and a lot of negative lyrics to anything, you have the brainwashing ability to be able to then adopt it and then do something about it, right? Because music in itself is a message, right? So if you literally had to read every lyric of every song that you listen to, I guarantee you that you'd be more selective of what you'd listen to.
Right, and it's going to emotion. That's a good practice, actually. You can put that into practice and look up lyrics. When you do,
That's how karaoke was invented.
that's true. So when you're reading these lyrics and not hearing the frequencies that come along with it in the music, then those lyrics by themselves are going to affect you in a different way than they would if you had the music playing.
Correct. Because all instrumental music, without any subliminal messages attached to it, is non-harmful.
Yeah, and there's some songs that I can even think of right now that when I learned the lyrics of these songs, a lot of times in the music, it's kind of hard to distinguish what's actually being said. And I won't name any particular bands, but when I discovered what the song was actually saying, and it's actually on TikTok, Kevin, so this is all over the place in my generation.
Yeah, well, it's not just your generation.
Right.
But you have to understand is that from the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, we've done on vinyl, reverse messages and all that kind of stuff. So it's a real big, deep dive. And of course, the Beatles, Rolling Stones, and a lot of other groups have had these in their lyrics and on their albums.
Correct.
But the bottom line is that it can only affect you if you are so weak as a person to be able to know what strength is. Because as soon as you know that, that's kind of a subliminal message,
right?
But why do you need to continue to listen to that?
Correct.
Why do you need to punish yourself? I don't get why Americans need to punish themselves over and over and over and over and over and over again, but won't spend any or hardly any time with a positive conclusion. Getting into a book, spending more time with positive people, doing all these different things.
Right.
It's all in a competition of who is actually doing worse than you.
Right. So that's why we really appreciate you spending this time with us, listeners, because we are doing our very best to bring you the very best information that leaves a positive frequency between your head, between your ears, so that you can continue going on that positive track and we can reinforce you in that. That's the whole point of being a life coach. So when I was saying, there's some music that I discovered the lyrics to and it was just disgusting, that's being played all over. And many people don't know what's actually being said. And as soon as I hear that music now, it's not that I get twisted up inside and really just emotionally sporadic and out of place, but I immediately feel like turning it off, not because of the sound of the music, but because of I understand what's actually going on in that singer. And it's the same way. It can be the same way with positive music. Once you understand that something very positive is being said and you want to be able to resonate with that message, then you can turn on the positive music, turn off that negative influence. And it's really important, I think, to be able to do so in delicate emotional situations in life. So, Kevin, anything to close this podcast off? We are approaching the last few minutes here.
Take note when listening to music. Know why you're listening to music. Know the lyrics to the music so that you know with peace of mind that you're only inputting what deserves to be inputted versus subliminally or personally put in there that doesn't resonate or belong.
Right, that you're going to have to get rid of later on.
And once you get on this pathway of really digesting music, you will start to be able to have new likes, new interests, new ways of listening to music than you have before. So there's high quality DAC audio, and then there's iMac audio. There's so many different higher variants and versions of music that when I listen to those levels of music, I can literally hear in different bands from yesteryear, people talking in the background, or people commenting, or the audience, being able to, you can hear kind of people talking in the audience, all that different kind of stuff. So the higher the audio, the more value you have to the music that you listen to. And so from having a great headset to a poor headset makes a difference. Because if you have a poor headset, you can't really resonate with that music. You have to have both earpieces being able to resonate through your skull to be able to really feel that music, right?
Right.
So do that with the words. Do that with the actions so that the reaction is, wow, that's a really great piece of music versus, well, that's really a great piece and we call it music. All right.
Right.
So no matter what your genre is, just know that what you like, love, value, appreciate, and respect, literally like, loves, value, appreciates, and respects you back. So know the power of those 5, and it'll make you come alive. Be the very best note taker, note listener, and reciprocator that you possibly can towards positivity, and therefore you will then plant seeds of positivity everywhere you go.
That's right. Make sure your words are as clear as the music you want to listen to so that your words can resonate with people on the level that you are intending for it to.
Correct.
And that's very powerful as even for my own personal life, Kevin. So thank you for that. And thank you for tuning in, listeners, to this episode of the Omnipresent Information Connection. We will meet you on the next podcast.
This has been another life-enhancing, authenticated podcast aired by the OIC and brought to you by the faithful OIC sponsors and contributors. Please tune in every week and subscribe to our podcast. And while you're there, explore our website with all the posts, videos, and podcasts that we have created with you in mind. While you're on the journey through our website, you will see our Patreon page where you can become a faithful contributor yourself with the freedom to be a part of our team today. Thank you.